In this video, we'll learn how to color correct Harman Phoenix 2. Let's jump right in. To start out here, we're going to hit the W key and white balance this image. We just want to click on somewhere on the film border here. Now we are white balanced. We'll hit Control Alt N if you have hotkeys enabled for Negative Lab Pro. Everything's set normally here. Type is negative. This is coming from a digital camera, and I prefer the basic color model. So we'll hit convert on this. Oh, and also border buffer is 25%, so I don't have to crop any of the film border. Negative Lab does that automatically. So we'll click on convert, and okay. So you may notice here that there is a nasty green hue all around the film border, and it kind of bleeds onto the image. Is this Phoenix 2 itself? No. This is a light leak. I changed light seals in this film back and inadvertently messed up the light seal. So light leaks still have light leaks. Anyway, those light seals in that film back need to be replaced. So let's jump right in here. How can we get rid of this green around the film border? Well, luckily for us, Negative Lab allows you to make RGB adjustments to your white balance. So if we come over to shadows and we find the green tab and we move it to the magenta, look at that. So if we move this green and magenta slider to the right, we lose that green in the film base. You will notice that there's a lot more magenta coming in, but that's okay. That's something we can correct after the fact. So for the time being, I'm just going to try to find a happy medium where there's not too much magenta, but we've reduced most of the green, because like I said, we can go back in and fix this later. So I'm going to start with this. I'm going to click OK and get this negative inverted so it looks normal. So to do that, we'll come up to photo, hit flip vertical. Nope, still not there. Flip horizontal. There we go. And then we need to come in and straighten this thing out. So to do that, we'll come down to the guided transform tool, and what we will do is line up the cross on the film border here to another side of the film border, boom, boom, and then we'll do it down here on the bottom. And this is never going to be totally perfect, so just get it as close as you can. Boom, that one was pretty good actually. Let's see, this has got halation on the side, so a little harder to dial this one in, but we'll get it. So now the photo's level and straight. I don't know how to get out of this screen other than by hitting the R key for the crop tool. And I'm just gonna come down and clean up these. And honestly, this doesn't look very good like this. So I'm gonna come in and just really cut these down. Okay, now we need to rotate this photo to the left. There we go. Look at that. That looks like a regular photo. Okay, so what we have here is a pair of Honda Groms from the local Grom gang. This is at Curry Pizza a few weeks back. So let's jump back into Negative Lab really quick. Since this is the first time editing Phoenix 2, I'm not really sure what it's capable of. So I'm going to jump over here to the Advanced tab. We are running Engine Settings 3.1. So hopefully that makes a little bit of a difference. I do like to run through these settings and just see what happens. So I'm just going to run through these quickly and see if there's any color changes. Generally, these are pretty minor and you can just barely see any change, but I do like the refined process a little better. It kind of smoothed out the grain over here on the plastics on the Grom. I've never noticed a lot of difference between color first and tones first, and I'm not seeing any difference here. We're on add density, so let's just see what happens if we select neutral and subtract density. That actually worked out pretty good. Didn't seem to make too much of adjustment up here in the highlight area, but that thinned out the shadow area here where there was more magentas. So I think I'm going to leave that on neutral density. That gives us a little bit of shadow here, but it also gave us some more detail. Let's jump down into color method. These you just have to run through to see which one looks the best, because it's different for every photo. I'm going to go shadow weighted. We'll keep it there. And I've never noticed anything with protecting the color balance. Okay, so that's all we'll do in the Advanced tab. Let's jump over to the Edit tab and just run through these tone profiles real quick. I'm not gonna do all of them. I just wanna see what we get. And the cinematic ones look terrible. There's Lab Standard again, that looks pretty good. Lab Soft removes quite a bit of contrast. And that actually, that's interesting. That looks pretty good. We need to add some contrast back in, but that lightens the image up without totally destroying it. So I may go with that and just adjust the black point myself. The other tone profile I like to use, and it changes, it's never the same one, but some of these linear profiles tend to look pretty good. So let's just check that out really quick. Let's see what linear flat looks like. Nope, in this instance that didn't work out so well. So standard is how this came out. It's got a decent amount of contrast, a little more than I like. So we're gonna go with Lab Soft, and we'll add our own contrast and adjust the black point ourselves. Next, I don't usually do much with the tabs here in Negative Lab. I prefer doing this in Photoshop because it seems like it's a more controlled place to work and you get more fine adjustments. I will, just for kicks, hit the black point adjustment or black clip. And sometimes there's magenta or greens, or sometimes blues or yellows in your shadows. And the black clip sometimes kind of can change that a little bit. You can kind of see that there's a little bit of adjustment in the color profile. But I'm just going to leave this at 0. And we'll do the adjustment in Photoshop because we can adjust it totally black without having any other colors come in. And for kicks though, I do want to see what white happens with white clip, just because I've never edited Phoenix 2 before. I'm not sure what it's capable of. And I actually kind of like the white clip, pushing that up a little bit. So I'm going to put that on 3 just for a little bit of a boost in the highlights, but it's not killing anything. Also note that Phoenix 2 has a lot of halation, but I think it looks pleasing here. I don't mind it. I actually really prefer how this looks over first gen Phoenix. This isn't a great example to show the sky, but actually really quick, I'm just going to jump over here. The sky is rendered really nicely in Phoenix 2. This is the first gen Phoenix without any adjustments, so you can see there's quite a big difference here between these two images. Like, this actually has gray in it, and you can see detail in the shadows. Not so much in the highlights because it's blown out. That's still a characteristic of Phoenix 2. But if you get your exposure right, I mean, look how nice the sky looks there. That's a pretty stark contrast to first gen Phoenix. I mean, like, you can still see sky here, but the blue isn't quite there. And you could probably edit it to get it there, but this is just straight out of Negative Lab and without any adjustment. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, back on track here. Got a little sidetracked. Let's get back to our Grom here, or Groms. Oh, I did forget to do one thing. Let's jump back into Negative Lab here. I do like to add a touch of sharpening, and I forgot to go through the white balance. So let's run through the white balance really quick here and just see if we can improve this at all. So auto neutral, auto mix. That doesn't look bad. That's interesting. Auto average. So auto average has quite a bit of magenta in it still, which makes sense because we cranked the magenta to get rid of the green. If we jump down to auto mix, that's adding some yellows, which I almost like because this was a sunset shot, not a magenta shot. Sunset shots tend to be more yellow and warm rather than red. So that's a little more than I like. Auto neutral isn't quite as aggressive. Auto warm, that's too much. And sometimes down here, these cinema presets look good, but in this case, they do not. So we started with auto average. It's none, just for kicks. Okay, very purple. So auto mix is a little warmer than I like, but we can cool it down just a tad there by doing this. All right. And then for HSL, let's just run through these quickly and just see how these look. I got rid of some of the purples, I think. Let's see. So we started with lab, natural, kind of got rid of more shadows, which I don't mind because we were going to go back in and adjust the black point ourselves anyway. Crystal's going to be crunchy. Yeah. Pack on. Just changes your black point kind of. I'm going to go with natural. I prefer that look. And then add a little bit of sharpening here. I prefer to do, it's been so long since I've edited, I can't remember if I do lab or scanner sharpening, but either way, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Okay, so we are done here in Negative Lab. Let's go to Photoshop by right clicking on the image and editing in Photoshop. Okay, now that we're in Photoshop here, I'd like to grab the quick selection tool. That's the W key. And what we're going to do here is select the inner part of the image. Sometimes this can be pretty labor intensive on your computer doing this with these larger files. So just do it in sections, and also you can see how the selection just bumped outside the border. Sometimes this happens. If it does, it's not the end of the world. I will show you how to fix it if this doesn't play along. But what I'm going to do now is speed through making this selection on the inside of the film border, and I'll show you why we're doing this in just a sec. Okay, and you can see that as I went down through here, the selection is on the other side of the film border here. So if you hold the Alt key and click and drag, it should snap back to the edge of the film border. And sometimes it may get a little hokey, but usually Photoshop is pretty good about snapping to edges of things. This has gotten a lot better over the last few years. But sometimes Photoshop will still struggle in these darker areas. But if you zoom in, sometimes that helps. See, we're getting pretty close there. Okay, so we have this one done. Let's zoom out here, run along this edge. Okay, now that we have the film border selected, I'm gonna hit Control 0 to bring this back to normal. And what we're gonna do, so this is selecting the inner part of the image. All the adjustments we make will not affect the outside of the film border. For now, I forget the keyboard shortcut, but I'm gonna select the inverse, which is the outer part. This is the black borders. And what I'm gonna do is come into filter and camera raw filter. This will only make adjustments to the film border. And what I wanna do is just darken it up a little bit. And that's not too difficult. Most likely I'll just come over here to the curves panel. It is going to show adjustments happening to the whole image, but since we've made the selection around the film border only, that's all that's going to be adjusted once we get out of camera raw. So I'm just going to darken up these film borders really quick so they're nice and black. And I think that is good. You can spend as much time here as you'd like, but I'm not going to do too much because we've got rid of the green and now the film borders are nice and dark. So we'll hit OK, and you can see that only the film borders were adjusted here because that's what was selected and the image itself is fine. So now I'm going to come back to select and do inverse again, and now the inner part of the image is selected. We'll go back to camera raw filter and just make some more adjustments here. So I like to start in the curves panel with the darks and the blacks or the shadows. So we don't need to push up anything here. I'm just going to leave this alone. But I do want to adjust the shadows slightly, but just very minimally, because Phoenix 2 is still kind of like slide film where it just doesn't have a lot of latitude. The blacks are really black and the brights are really bright. So we'll just add a touch of shadow here. I'm not going to worry about any darks, or maybe if I do, it'll just be a tiny amount. Lights, I may push up just a smidge. I don't want to go too crazy here. I'm going to tone the highlights down just a little bit. Okay. And we'll come up here to the top of the settings. I don't think exposure really needs to be adjusted much. Maybe just a tad. Contrast will add a little bit, but I don't want to add too much because like I said, the blacks crush pretty easy here. Highlights, I know I just toned them down in the panel before this one, but I'm going to bump them up a little here. Same with the shadows. I'm going to bump these shadows a little bit, even though we're adding contrast and blacks in. I just want some shadow detail on the engine here since they're pretty dense. And then we'll add a little bit of blacks in here. I don't think we need to mess with white balance. We pretty much got that figured out. Ooh, that looks nice with the golden glow. But I like this more neutral. It looks better. Let's try to get rid of some of the magentas we added in. So I'm going to just do a slight bump to greens because there is some magenta in here still. And there's a way we can pull some more of that out. We'll get to that. I don't really like to add vibrance or anything like that. It just doesn't look very good to me. Ooh, this is going to be a nice black and white picture. That's cool. I'm going to add just a little bit of texture, even though Phoenix is super gritty. We'll add just a little bit of clarity. Dehaze, I do like to add some of that in the photos because sometimes it can add some nice contrast without darkening too much, but where this is already pretty crunchy as far as the darks go, I'm not going to add a lot. We'll do like +2. And then if we hit the P key, we can see before and after. Here's our before, here's our after. It's very minimal. We're just basically lightening the image slightly and adding a little bit of contrast in and kind of correcting the shadow areas here. But this looks good. So let's jump down to the luminance panel and we'll try to pull some of the purple and magenta out of the shadow areas. So to do that, we are going to go to the hue panel and I'm going to mess with some of these sliders really quick. Yep, okay. So I pulled the magentas back and the purples quite a bit, and you can see how that shifted the asphalt to not look so purple. Let me hide the changes that we made. So you can see quite a bit of purple here, and we've been able to remove most of that from the image. There's still a little bit in the tires here you can see, but it's not critical. And I don't want to go too blue with it because it is asphalt. What if we do saturation? I'm just curious. Oh, there we go. And if we pull some of the saturation out of the purple, that really cleans everything up. So I'm going to pull a little bit out there, a little bit of magenta, and that looks like asphalt now. I don't have that nasty purple hue. This is actually coming really nice, guys. I like this image. I might print this one. It's really cool. I like the groms, and I don't know. I like the halation around it. It's a summertime shot. You got one person and an eighth of a person there, or part of their arm. But dude, this I don't know. I'm digging this shot. This is really cool. I'm really liking Phoenix 2. Other than the price, it's way too expensive for what it is, but this is a huge improvement over first gen Phoenix. I do want to see if I can bring some of the shadow detail in the sky back in, but I don't know if that's going to be something that's possible. But yeah, this looks good. I think this looks good. Oh, I did forget to add a little bit of sharpening. I used to have a number memorized for how much sharpening I like to add in, and I forget what it is because it's been so long since I've edited a photo. But anyway, that's besides the point. We'll just make some adjustments here real quick. That just adds a tad bit of sharpening. It's nothing crazy, but just a small amount to clean things up. We will click OK. And then, oh, look at that. I missed one little spot here. Oh well. Oh well, oh well. I missed 2 spots. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect this and Control S to save. At this point, I would go in and dust the photo, and I need to do that. This is super clean, actually. There is not much dust to remove. There is a little bit of stuff in here, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to fast forward it so you guys don't have to suffer through it. I have a more detailed video explaining how I dust these images, but for now, I'm going to just run through this quickly, dust it, and then we'll go from there. Also, just want to jump in really quick and let you know that when you're in here dusting like this, it can be pretty taxing on your computer, so make sure to save often. I will generally save after making a pass. Okay, I believe we are coming to the end of dusting this image. Alright, so if you hit Control 0, that zooms you out, and we can just run through and double check our work here and see if we missed anything. I do see like a leaf or something down here. That is actually a leaf, but it's distracting. So I'm going to remove this with the healing tool. Okay, we'll get rid of this one. And there was a couple on the side here. I'll just get rid of these quickly. Looking good. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything. There's like a weird something right here. So we'll blend that. Control D and Control 0. All right, I think we got everything. This is just like a little reflection, but we'll get rid of that as well since it's standing out. And I think that's pretty much everything. I'm gonna leave that. That's just a reflection on the bike. So, it's standing out. So let's just get rid of it. And much better. Okay. So there you have it, folks. That's how you edit Phoenix 2. This looks much better than first gen Phoenix, and I'm honestly really excited for the 3rd iteration. Very impressed. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Okay, I believe we are coming to the end